Welcome back to my channel. My name is Aisha. Hopefully you're not new here, and if you're new, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and join the family. See, I have sore throat, so my throat, I need this hot tea. So I'm recording this video on my work break and I need to be fast, but I wanted to quickly come and talk about the book I just finished a couple of days ago called Don't Touch My Hair by Emma Dabiri. So I listened to the audiobook for this book and also read the e-copy. This book was written by a biracial woman called Emma Dabiri. She is Irish, Nigerian. She was born to an Irish mother and a Nigerian father. And the book basically examines black hair, and that ranges from, you know, loose curled hair to 40 hair, African hair, and specifically she goes into like the history of African hair and how it has come to be politicized today, the long history of the politicization of black hair basically. She also introduces us to some of the experiences that she had while growing up as a biracial girl that does not have the stereotypical biracial hair, you know, the one with loose curls, you know, long, silky. She grew up with type 4 Afro hair. I'll go right into the review. I loved this book. I loved listening to Emma read the book, even though she butchered many of the Yoruba words that she, you know, mentioned in the book while narrating the book. But I forgive her because of the depth of the research that went into this book. The book is divided into 6 main chapters, and under each chapter she goes into like mini topics. So the first chapter is titled It's Only Hair. This chapter basically examines how and why it is incorrect to tell black people that it is just hair when they are talking about the politics of, you know, 4C hair especially, but like black hair. This includes the hairstyle, the bans, and the kind of policies that are put in place to prevent black people from fully embodying the hair that grows out of their heads. So in this chapter she goes into some details about the hairstyles that are spotted in, you know, African societies. She goes specifically into the Yoruba society because our dad is Yoruba, so our ancestry is Yoruba, which brings me back to the way she was portraying some of the words. She also goes into her own personal journey with her hair, you know, from hating her hair to all the steps that she went through to try to get it to be straight, long and silky, and then how she eventually got the big chop. And then she goes into the natural hair movement and what natural hair movement looks like today. And it is also in this chapter that she goes head on into how colorism ties into the way that 4C hair especially is viewed, and, you know, how the loose type 2 type 3 is desired on light-skinned black people. One of the pregnant things that I took away from this chapter is that Emma explicitly says that most of us have been looking at racism the wrong way for the most part, in that racism is not solely attributed to, or is not solely characterized by skin color. It is more by the hair. And this makes sense because there are so many times I've asked the question, why are dark Indians, like Indians that are very obviously darker than many Africans, considered not black, when Africans that have varying degrees of skin tone ranging from light skin to brown are considered black? And it all boils down to the hair type if you look at it very closely. And so even if you're light skinned like Emma and you just happen to be sporting A4C hair, like type 4C hair, you are considered black. You are just considered black, and that informs the way that racism is dished out to people. And this also got me thinking, because there are times when in, you know, the UK, when I experience some form of obvious discrimination, the first thing that comes to my mind is, I'm not sure, are you being discriminatory towards me because I'm a hijabi or because I'm black? Emma's suggestion about how racism is perceived and more tied to the type of hair that you have than the color of your skin kind of made sense to me in terms of me covering my hair. In the second chapter, titled Ain't Got the Time, Emma goes into the history of how time that, you know, Africans spent taking care of our hair, sporting different hairstyle were considered by European colonizers as a waste of valuable resource. And she also goes into the history of what is considered time in African societies, how the way historic Africans considered time is very different from the way that time is considered in this capitalist society. And time spent on your hair, taking care of your hair, sporting different hairstyle was considered personal, family bonding time. It was intricate to building the core of the society, and that again kind of got me thinking into my own relationship with my hair now. And best believe that I have started rethinking the way I think of the time that I spend on wash days differently, just because we need to decolonize our mind. In the third chapter, titled "Shh, Just Relax," Emma goes into the history of hair and the natural hair products business in the UK, specifically considering how the natural hair market is dominated by South Asian men today. Again, considering the colorism and racism that is in that community towards Black women especially. She also goes into the history of Black hair care in an American setting. So this is going back to Madam C.J. Walker, Annie something, I can't remember her name now, but those two pioneering businesswomen in the hair care system. She also goes on to talk about like Black elitism, how the rich Black people were discriminatory towards type C tightly coiled hair. There was this chapter that really spoke to me, and that is the fourth chapter, which is titled "How Can You Love Himself and Hate Your Hair?" And this chapter basically examines the hatred that Black men have for Black women's hair. This chapter also examines the fact that there are many Black men that actually hate their own hair, because this is the same hair that grows out of their head. So why do we think that only Black women experience this dislike and this disregard for the type of hair that grows out of their head, when Black men literally have the same hair growing out of their head? In the history of Black America, men were also high consumers of texturizers and relaxers, and many of them spoke about the fact that they wanted their hair to be loose. That's why like jerry curls were a thing, and that kind of gave context to how many Black men, even African men today, hate when Black women are sporting the hair that actually grows out of their head. And it's the concept of you wearing wig at the same time. It's like they want you to be growing this naturally straight silky hair from your head. One thing that was so mind-blowing was the opening chapter, the opening paragraph of this chapter. So basically Emma wrote a statement that was made by someone called Eldred Cleaver. Eldred Cleaver is a prominent Black Panther Party member, and I don't know if I should read you this thing, but it's so problematic. Anyway, so it goes, "There is no love left between a Black man and a Black woman. Take me for instance. I love white women and hate Black women. It is just in me so deep that I don't even try to get it out of me anymore. I'd jump over 10 just to get to one white woman. Isn't no such thing as an ugly white woman. And just to touch a long, soft, silky hair, there is softness about a white woman, something delicate and soft inside her. But it seems to be full of steel, granite, hard, and resisting. I mean, I can't analyze it, but I know that the white man made the Black woman the symbol of slavery and the white woman the symbol of freedom. Every time I'm embracing a Black woman, I am embracing slavery. And when I put my arms around a white woman, well, I'm hugging freedom." So Emma's point about this account is that when Cleaver was mentioning the description of a Black woman and a white woman, his focus was on the white woman's hair. There is no direct or explicit description of the Black woman's skin being the problem. What Cleaver was focusing on is the nature of the white woman's hair, for that cementing our point that race is tied more to the nature of your hair rather than the color of your skin. And naturally she also goes into the history, the violent history of that Black enslaved women faced specifically. The chapter where she goes in depth into the culture of cultural appropriation when it comes to hairstyle and why the likes of Kylie Jenner and Kim Kardashian are deeply problematic is in Everybody Wanna Sing My Blues but Nobody Wanna Leave My Blues. One thing I particularly like about this chapter is that Emma does not, use the trivial argument to make her point about cultural appropriation. She specifically makes a point where she said that, the way that we jump at these celebrities when they do this obviously culturally inappropriate things has kind of trivialized the weight of the problem. And I agree with that. Like, many people just, jump at these people. I kind of feel like because they know that people will move on from their accusations, they just keep coming back to do the exact same things. So Emma goes in depth into why cultural appropriation is problematic, not cultural appreciation. And then in the last chapter, titled Ancient Futures, Math, Mapping, Braiding and Encoding, Emma basically blew my mind in how she drew parallels between the act of braiding and mathematics, and how Africans have been sporting their own math system way before Europeans discovered maths, and how that is well evident in the kind of hairstyles that were sported historically. One exact thing that blew my mind is how binary coding, the very basis on which computing is built on, was derived from an African math system. This book is well researched, is rich in historical findings, so much so that if she even uses like flyers that were put out by slave masters to find runaway enslaved people at the time to describe the nature of black hair at the time, like when people were stolen. I just really liked this book, and it was such an experience reading this book. I would highly recommend it if you want to understand why black hair, type 4 hair specifically, is so politicized, why cultural appropriation is a huge problem, not something you can just dismiss as, oh yeah, let white people appreciate culture, why it is not the same thing for Kim Kardashian to be sporting a braids and crediting it to a white woman as when a black woman wears weave. This is well explained in this book, and I think at this point, if somebody does not want to agree with what is obvious, then they're just playing devil's advocate. But yeah, I really enjoyed this book and I would highly recommend it. Give it 5 stars like immediately. I hope this review has piqued your interest in wanting to pick up this book. And yeah, I'm going to stop talking about it now. If you watched this video up until this point, comment the book emoji because I like books. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.